Hey guys, yesterday OpenAI just completely blew all of our minds with all of the new features and tools that they have announced to make it easier to build real-world AI applications. But the most important announcement they made was the release of AgentKit, which is a brand new tool that makes it easier to build, deploy, and optimize real-world agents. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down everything you guys need to know about AgentKit, including what the heck is it, what can it do, and I'm going to be walking you through a few real-world examples of us making some agents using this new tool. All right, so here's what you need to know. OpenAI had their dev day yesterday where they released all sorts of brand new features. Cannot recommend watching this video of Sam where he covers all of it. Definitely recommend checking that out. But inside his announcement, you're going to see all sorts of new cool products that he's releasing. Everything from the ability to add in apps to ChatGPT, some cool new updates to Sora so that you can use the API. But the most important one, in my opinion, was their announcement of AgentKit, which is a super easy way for you to build production grade agents. So let's actually hop in so you can see exactly what's going on inside of AgentKit. So the whole promise of this new tool is to allow you guys to build, deploy, and optimize real world agents. And they have made it so easy, it feels like cheating when it comes to building out these agents. Now, it's actually a combination of multiple tools. So AgentKit really is a combination of their AgentBuilder tool plus ChatKit. And we're going to be walking through these and actually building out examples throughout the rest of this video, but let's cover quickly what each tool is. So first things first, AgentBuilder. If you ever used N8N, where you go off and actually build out agents to where you drag in an agent and then you do a workflow and then different agents go to different places. This is AgentBuilder. It is incredibly easy to use and it feels like cheating when building agents. Now, what's really cool is this UI that you guys are going to be seeing me build some agents here and showing off all of the cool new features in just a second. What's really happening under the hood is we're building on top of Agent SDK. So this is already a tool that they build, but they just made a really nice UI for us to create our own AI agents. Super excited to dive in. Now, that's building out the agents, but what about actually adding these agents to your applications? Well, that's usually one of the hardest parts about building AI tools. So they released ChatKit, which is a really cool toolkit that allows you to actually add these different agent workflows that you're building into your application. And it's crazy. We'll dive into this later on, but you can actually build out cool UIs just like this to where you can talk to AI. It'll actually pop up cool widgets. Like it does so many cool things. And we're going to be going through all of this together today. So what do we need to do? Well, first things first, we need to hop over to AgentBuilder. And don't worry, I will have links to everything that you guys are going to be seeing today so you can easily hop around. But like I said, second you click the link, it's going to take you into the docs where you're going to see, yep, we promised we'll help you build, deploy, and optimize your agents. But what we want is AgentBuilder. And most importantly, we want to open AgentBuilder to where we get to start on creating our own new canvas. So you can see whenever you go to access AgentBuilder, once again, I'll have a link to it so you can easily hop to it. But what you're going to see is you can create your own custom workflows, or what you can do is access a bunch of their pre-built templates that they've already created for us. So you can see they have everything from customer service, where you're going to be able to add in agents, plus workflows and conditions, where each condition triggers its own agent. So they have an insane amount of cool new features for us. But what I want to do today is actually walk you through two different examples where we're going to create agents from scratch, explore all of the different ways we can actually customize these agents and have them work in real time. And then at the very end, you're going to see how we can actually embed one of these agents inside of a NextJS application. Super excited. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start working on creating our first workflow. All right, so for the first example, we're going to build out a basic Q&A workflow, and we're going to start really simple so you can understand the core fundamentals, and then we're going to add in more and more functionality just so you can see how easy it is to build really powerful AI agents using AgentBuilder. So what we're going to do, first things first, we want to create a workflow. So when we click create, what we're going to do is be brought into a very basic workflow like this. And here are the core controls that you guys need to know. So first things first, you're going to be able to add all the core elements like agents, whenever you click an agent, you're going to have the ability to start to add instructions. You're going to have the ability to tweak everything about this agent. Don't worry, we're going to cover that more. But what's really cool is they've also given us the ability to add in tools. So we can add in the ability for us to do file search, which is where we can start to do RAG against a vector store. They have the ability for us to do guardrails, where guardrails allow us to basically say, hey, I want to protect what we're building against multiple things, such as like, hey, I don't want people to include PII. I don't want people to jailbreak it. I don't want to include hallucinations. Like, there's so many cool tools that they've added to help us build really safe and effective AI agents. And that's the whole promise. Build, deploy, and actually optimize enterprise-grade AI agents. Then outside of that, you have the ability to add MCP tools where you can actually come in here and connect up to all sorts of different servers. Don't worry, you're going to see us work on this in a second. Finally, you have the ability to add in workflows. So you can add in if-else statements to where if we're trying to do customer service, what we can do is say, hey, if my agent's trying to answer a question about the tech support, we'll direct them to the tech support agent. If they're just trying to get a refund, we'll direct them to the refund agent. You get to work on all of this, conditional based workflows inside of AgentBuilder right here. Now, enough talk. Let's actually go ahead and build out our very first agent. And like I said, we're going to do a very basic query agent, and then we're going to add more complexity. And don't worry, in example 2, we're going to do RAG. I'm super excited for you guys to see this. So for this first one, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to call this our code Q&A agent. Now, what is this going to do? Well, this agent is, we're actually going to use MCP to answer code questions. Super excited for you guys to see this in action. So one of the coolest things that we can do is say, hey, it is your job to answer questions provided by the user. And every time you answer a code question about the user, you need to use the context7 tool to make sure that you get all the necessary information to provide an informed answer. Now, what this is going to do is we're going to now start working on adding in tools. And this is where I'm just like blown away with how easy it is to actually use AgentBuilder. So to add a tool, what you can do is click Add Tool right here. Once we add a tool, you have the option to add in, multiple different versions. So you can do an MCP tool. You can use file search. If you want to do RAG, you can add in web search, code interpreter. Like, there's so many built-in tools that you guys get to add automatically. In our case, what we want to do is add in an MCP server where we're going to use context7. Now, if you haven't used context7 before, it is a really cool tool that allows us to access up-to-date documents that we can easily provide to access questions about anything related to code. So we can access any question about NextJS, Vercel, Mongo, like we can do anything. It's crazy. This is one of my favorite MCP tools. So what we're going to do is we want to actually add MCP as a server. So what we can do is, in our case, we'll just open one of these because all we really need is this URL. Then we can come back over to AgentBuilder and say, hey, I would actually like to add in a custom server. So we can click server, and we're going to say, hey, I would like to add in this custom MCP server. I want to call this context7. So this is the name of the tool. And what we're going to do next is say, hey, there's no need to add any authentication. We're just going to connect to this tool. Now it's going to say, all right, I want to connect to this tool. And here are the underlying tool calls I can make when using context7. What's really nice about the way that AgentBuilder allows us to add in tools is you guys can pick, hey, whenever we're calling a tool, what do you want to do? Do you want to always require approval, never, or be configured? In our case, we're just going to say never. It's okay to always do a search. We're not doing anything crazy. So let's actually dive into a little bit more available options that we have when it comes to controlling agents so that we can be on the same page. So you always have the ability to pick which different model that you guys want to use. When it comes to reasoning, because GPT-5 is a thinking model, we can pick. Do you want me to think a long time, a little time? What do you want to do? In our case, we'll just stick to low so we can focus on quickly returning an answer. Now, one of my favorite parts, and you're going to see us use this later, but you can actually pick, how do you want the output to be? Do you want us just to return text? Do you want us to return JSON? Do you want us to also work on a widget using ChatKit? Don't worry, you're going to see all these later, but right now we're just going to stick to text. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and try it out. And actually, at this point, you're going to see just how easy it is to actually use one of these agents. The only final thing I do want to call out up here is how you can actually add questions to basically add context to your questions. So what you can always do is say, hey, it is your job to answer questions that were given to the user. So, answer the following user question. Now, all we have to do is click add context, and then you guys can click input as text. Where the heck is this coming from, you might ask? Well, it's coming from start. So start is going to be the first message that gets passed into our agent. And you can see this is what's getting passed in. So enough talk, let's actually try this out. So inside of AgentBuilder, you can click preview, and this is going to give you a quick preview to try out your agent before you deploy it. Super cool that they allow you to do this and actually try it out. So what I can say is, what is the latest version of, and sometimes this gets spelled wrong, so AI SDK. So at this point, I'm saying, hey, what's the latest version of Vercel AI SDK, which is a really cool tool that you can use inside of Next.js to actually chat with AI models. Now, at this point, what it's doing is it's like, cool, I need to fetch SDK version. I'm going to use the context7 tool, like we told it to actually call and figure out the latest version. And you can see what's really nice is that in the reasoning steps, it actually made a bunch of calls to Vercel AI SDK. So it's saying, all right, I'm going to call this tool within inside of context7 to try and figure out what is the latest version. And it's basically going to provide back an answer. And yes, this is, Vercel AI SDK is at version 5. So it did an awesome job. And, it's asking for a few follow-up questions, but hey, it's working. This is the part that's crazy. We just built an agent, hooked up an MCP server, and chatted with it in seconds. Like, this is blowing my mind how easy it is. So at this point, we can close out. Now let's actually start diving into some of the more advanced features or some of the more, capabilities that we have when it comes to actually answering questions. So let's actually clear out the workflow lines and let's actually start building out another agent to where we're like, hey, you know what? Every time I build out an agent, I'm not always trying to ask questions about code. Sometimes I have general questions. So what we can do is say general Q&A agent. And the whole point of this agent is going to be, hey, it is your job to answer general questions provided by the users and make sure to use the web search tool to provide an informed answer to the user's question. Now, at this point, it is super simple. Once again, what do we have to do? We can actually provide in the user question. Now, what we're going to do though, is we're going to start actually using some of the advanced tools here, like if else, and we're going to start to use some routing and categorization. Normally this takes forever to set up, but it takes seconds. So you're about to see it. So we're going to go ahead and pass in the user question once again. So we can click add context. And we're going to, once again, we are adding in the initial question provided by the user. What's also really cool is you can actually add in the entire chat history. What this is going to allow you guys to do, I just want to bring this up as well, is as you have a longer conversation to where, maybe to start, we had a question to the code agent, then later on we had a follow-up question to our general Q&A agent. Hey, we're going to allow our agent to access our entire chat history. So really cool that you can just, with a flick of a switch, change what information is being provided to your agents. All right, now, what are we going to do this time? Well, now what we're trying to do is we want to use the web search, because we want the agent to go search the web to answer our questions. So we're just going to leave it all completely blank for right now to where it just has total control and can go search whatever it needs to. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to see how we can start to build in actual workflows to make our lives easier. So as you can see right now, we are at a spot where we have to route questions to the code agent or route questions to the general Q&A agent. I probably should spell that correctly too. So how the heck do we do this inside of AgentBuilder? Well, they've made it so easy. What you can do is you guys can add another agent that's going to be a classifier. So what this agent is going to do is we're just going to say, hey, it's your job to classify queries as either code or general. It is your job to classify queries as a code of code or general. And I meant to say category. It's your job to classify queries as code or general. Oh yeah, it's perfect. Now, here's where we get to start to be fancy. Up until this point, our output format has always been text, where we're saying, hey, please just respond to the person. But now what we're doing is we're actually trying to classify our queries as code or as general. So what we can do is, first off, we can say, I want to use JSON. Now what we get to do is add a JSON schema to where we're going to say, hey, the output is either code or general. Normally this is a pain in the butt. You have to, be pretty tech savvy or talk to AI to figure out how to actually make this happen. They've made it super cool. Down here, you have a button to where you can actually just generate the output schema for one of your AI agents. So we're going to click generate. And then once again, we want to create a schema where the categorization is either code or general. That's it. That's literally all we have to do to actually have it transcribe what needs to be done. So now it's going to take in our raw instructions and say, cool, the category of this output is an enum where the response can either be code or general. That's exactly what we wanted, and it took like 2 seconds to set up. That's crazy. So we're going to say update. Fantastic. So now the output format is going to be passed out as categorization. Then what we can do, I did make a quick mistake. Once again, we want to add in the input context just so we can say, once again, user query, just to be super specific. Fantastic. So now we have our classifier agent. So now we get to start working on if else. So if else is where we're going to start to bridge and make magic happen, where we're going to start to route things. So at this point, we're trying to classify everything. So we're going to say, all right, what can actually happen? Well, at this point, what we can do is we'll say if if it's a code, so this is the name, this is just the name that appears right here, what we can do is start to put in conditions. Now, what conditions can we actually map on? Well, you can see we can actually access the category. The category was defined right here by this agent. So we actually specified it. So category, you can see right here, category, this is exactly what we wanted. We can access it over here inside if else statement. So right here, code, I can once again click and let's see, there we go. So now I can click category and it's like, all right, so you've provided a category. What do you want to do? Well, we want to say if the category equals, in our case, we can now put some quotes and we can say code. So if the category provided to us is code, what we want to do is map over to our next agent. So we're going to say if it's code, map to the code agent. Otherwise, map to our general Q&A. So this is literally us building a real world workflow to where we have a classifier agent, we have if else, and we have, routing. So let's actually try this out. So let's click preview. And at this point, what we can do is say, can you please tell me what is the latest version of NextJS? Now at this point, it's going to classify. So the classifier is running, it's reasoning, it's figuring out, okay, I can detect that in the if else statement that the category result was code. So I'm moving people over to the code agent and then it's going to do its thing. Now what's also really cool, well, as soon as it's done answering, we can ask our next question to where we can see it gets routed over to, the other Q&A agent. So obviously reasoning is low right now. We could probably pick a faster model for simple questions, but hey, it did a great job. It actually answered our question and it routed properly, which is crazy how easy it was to get to this far. We can also ask another question so you can just see it in action. What is the weather today in Atlanta, Georgia? Now, at this point, what it's going to do is it's going to classify the question. And at this point, we should see the classification as general, not code. And we can now see, yep, category general. So now what it's going to do is route us over to the general agent. And the general agent has access to the web. So it's going to go do a query to the internet to figure out what today's date is. It's going to then look up the weather and then come back and say, hey, the weather is this today in Atlanta, Georgia, which is really cool that it can do this. Yeah, so you can see, boom, it crushed it. Now, that was a really quick overview of just building out a super simple workflow inside of AgentKit. Now, what I want to do next, well, now that you've seen AgentBuilder in action, let's go ahead and hop over to part 2, where you guys are going to start to see how we can build out a more complex workflow where we're going to use RAG. Super excited for you guys to see this in action. Plus, you're going to see how we can actually incorporate our RAG solution over to a NextJS application. It's crazy how easy it is to hook all this up. So let's go ahead and hop over to working on a brand new workflow. So first things first, we need to go back to AgentBuilder and we're going to click create a workflow. Now, what we need to do is basically make a new agent and we're going to start simple and then add in complexity. So this is just going to be our RAG query agent. And the whole point of this agent in our case is it's going to help answer questions that people might have had about some of my coaching calls. So we're just going to give it a quick instructions and then we're going to add in a vector store. So let's go ahead and do it. Your job is to be a query agent where you are going to answer questions that students might have had about the coaching calls during the weekly ShipKit coaching calls. And it is your job to search up the information for their question and provide a well-informed answer. So what's it actually doing? Well, it's actually doing, just so you guys can see what's going on. So it's going to be answering coaching call recordings. So I'm going to be building out a vector store where it's going to be answering questions that people might have had during one of the coaching calls that I have inside of ShipKit. So people are going to be asking questions about hey, what did Brandon tell me to do when it comes to building a chat application or a RAG application? So it's going to be helping answering these kind of questions. So how the heck do we actually make that happen? Well, now that we have a RAG agent, what we want to do is go to tools and we're going to add in the ability to do file search. Now, whenever we do file search, what we're going to do is we can actually select a vector store. So you can see right down here. So we're going to click select vector store. And if you've never made one before, it's so easy to do. Let me show you. You're going to click vector stores right here. And this is going to take you over to OpenAI. And you can see down here we have storage. Where storage, we can add files or vector stores. In our case, all I did to get this working is I clicked create. And that created a brand new vector store that I called Brandon Hancock. From there, what I did is I added in files. Which files did I add in? I basically just added in the transcript of each one of those. So I just let me actually just show you guys real fast. I added in markdown files just like this. So call 1, 2, 3, 4, where it's just the transcript from these calls. Super, super straightforward. And now I attach these files So all we have to do on our side to create a RAG agent using OpenAI is just copy this ID right here. So now whenever we come back to our agent, we're just going to paste in the vector store and it's going to go, oh, you want me to ask questions about this YouTube vector store? Sure. So that's all we have to do is select it. And at this point, boom, this agent is now basically has the ability to do RAG queries against this vector store. And the final thing that we're going to do is just pass in the user query. So we're going to say user query, and let's make sure everything else looks good. I just want to make sure we spelled everything right. Fantastic. This is all we need to do to start actually testing out our vector store, which is crazy. So here's what we can do. Can you please tell me when the last coaching call was for shipkit.ai? And at this point, what it's going to do is our agent is going to go, all right, I'm the RAG agent. I'm now going to search files. And at this point, it's actually performing RAG queries. So it's doing multiple calls in parallel where it's trying to figure out like, all right, when was the last session? Once it gets back the results, it's going to craft a response. And what's cool is it's like, all right, the most recent ShipKit coaching call was on October 7th. It was an 1.5-hour call, and you can actually watch the recording here. So you can actually, like, you can click it, like it's doing full-blown RAG where it's pulling out stuff. So yeah, that's insane that it was that easy to get a RAG agent up and working with OpenAI. Now, what else can we do? Well, there's a ton of other features. Oops, sorry, that was a draft. Let me actually make sure I'm clicking on the right one. Fantastic. So let's make sure we don't make that mistake again. So what we can do is call this RAG coaching. Boom. So now we have our RAG agent up and working, but that's just level 1. We can get much fancier with this going forward. So what we can do is we could add in guardrails. So what we can do for guardrails is we could actually, if we wanted to, I'm not going to do it, but I just want to show you guys what you could do is make sure people don't ask PII questions when trying to do a RAG query. So what they couldn't do is, or heck, we could actually do it on the end if you wanted to. What we could do is say like, hey, don't return anything with PII. So this could be something like, you know, if we don't want to show the person's name, phone number, something like that, we could easily block it before it was sent to the model. So there's all sorts of cool things that we could do here. But we're going to skip that one for now. But I just want to like, these are all the options that you guys can have to where you can spin up in a few seconds. In our case, what we want to do is we actually want to include a guardrail to prevent hallucinations. So let me show you how easy this is to make sure that the agent doesn't hallucinate something that it's not supposed to. So we can, in guardrail, I can click it and then I can say hallucinations. Basically, don't hallucinate. And what it's going to do is it is going to verify claims against trusted documents in your vector store. So I think the easiest way to see this one in action is actually just go ahead and look at it. So what we can do is browse the vector store. And actually, I think I might have it pasted still. Yeah. So you can see this is the vector store and we're going to just say add. And you can, if you wanted to, you can pick the model, you could pick the components. But basically for doing hallucination guardrails, we just want a quick model to say, does this look valid? Is this not valid? If so, proceed. So we're going to say, okay, now what do we need to do? Well, in our case, this is my one complaint is they don't make it easy to, I wish the editor was a little bit bigger, but in our case, what we can do is pass our results from our agent to guardrail. Now what guardrails are going to do is 2 options. So first, if we fail, what we want to do is pass this information over to one agent. And if it passes, we want to pass it over to another agent. So what should be the result of the agent if it works? So we're just going to say, please return the query answer to the user. Now, what this is going to do is we can actually add context. Which context do we want to add? Well, in our case, we want to add safe text. You'll see what safe text is in just a second. Here is the answer. Here's the answer. And then we're going to say, here was the initial question. So at this point, we can actually pass in both. So input is coming from here. The safe result is coming from guardrails, where guardrails is basically saying like, yeah, this information is safe. This was valid information from the user. So that's what we can have. So we can say, you know, result agent. Then what we can do is on the second agent, we can have it say, hey, something went wrong. So we'll call this the unsafe answer agent. Now, what is this going to have access to? Well, you can always click add context to see what information you have access to when working with all these different nodes. So in our case, down here in hallucination, you can see we have multiple different reasons or multiple different fields we can access for hallucination. So in our case, we can access reasoning. So we can say, in our case, we can say the user's initial query produced hallucinations. Here is the initial query. And what we can do is just, once again, always pass in the initial query provided by the user. And I know this might be a little tiny. I apologize. I guess we can zoom back in again. So here's the initial query. Then what we can do is say, here is the reason why the answer is not valid. Then what we can do is pass in reasoning. And then what we can also do is I think we can also access, we actually can't access anything else, but we can also give it more information to provide the hallucination type. Here is the hallucination type as well. And what we can do, once again, add context, and we can provide it right here, hallucination type. Okay, I think we're all good. So let's actually try this out again. So let's preview our agents. And at this point, we're just gonna try and go down the unsafe path. So we can say, what time did Brandon walk his dog yesterday? And at this point, what's going to happen is the RAG agent is going to try and search through all the vector stores to see through all my coaching calls, what time did I walk my dog? The short answer is I never talked about that. That's not the whole point of this vector store. So this should trigger as a failure where the guardrail goes, hey, there's not anything mentioning it. So the guardrail should basically say, hey, no, you don't have this information. This is not valid. So you can see the guardrail failed. So failed, that's perfect. That's what we wanted it to do. And it's saying, here was the input, which is what time did Brandon walk his dog? Then it's going to say exactly what went wrong. So the hallucination reasoning is like, hey, the user is asking about walking the dog, but the documents never mention any information about his dogs. Therefore, the factual claim or any questions is going to be unsupported. So it's an unsupported claim for whatever answer. We can't actually answer a question about this because we don't have information about it. So the unsafe agent answers and it's saying, hey, I don't see any information in the uploaded coaching call transcripts. I only talk about a dog one time as a general example, but I never talk about walking my dogs. So that's pretty cool. That's adding in guardrails like that is normally such a pain, but with working with basically AgentKit, it took 2 seconds and we set that up. All right, so here's what we can do. Now I want us to start working on showcasing some of the cooler features of working with AgentKit and ChatKit. So this is where we're going to start working with actually incorporating and publishing this agent right here and actually having it so that we can actually add it to a NextJS application. So that's part one. And then part two, I'm going to show you how you can start adding in custom forms and outputs and UIs. It's crazy how easy it is for all this to work. So let's hop over to a NextJS application and actually start hooking everything up because it's stupid easy to do. So I'll see you in just a second. All right, so welcome to the ChatKit starter template. This was generated and built by OpenAI, and it's something that you guys can access. I'll have a link to all the resources and a link down in the description below so you can get links to this template so you can download it yourself. But what the heck is this template actually doing? Well, at the end of the day, it's installing all the necessary packages for us to start working with ChatKit, which is, basically the file and the library that allows us to bring in all the cool agent workflows and actually add them as a really nice UI in our Next.js application. So let's just run this bad boy so you can see how easy it is to actually talk with your agent workflows. Now, here's exactly what you need to do to get it working. Whenever you download the OpenAI ChatKit starter app, there's 2 things you have to change. That's literally it. You have to add in your public workflow ID. I'll show you how to get that. And you need to go get an OpenAI key. You guys are smart, you know how to do that. So how do we get this workflow ID? Well, all you have to do is publish your application. It's as simple as that. So in the top right, you're gonna click publish. As soon as you click publish, you are gonna name your workflow. In our case, it's RAG coaching, and we're gonna click publish. Once this is published, it's going to go ta-da, and you can see in the top left that we can actually version it and everything, which is crazy. But what should happen to actually work with your agent is at the very end, to get your workflow ID, you have to click code. Once you click code, all you have to do is grab this workflow ID right here inside of ChatKit. And what is pretty cool, you can see under the hood that, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, AgentBuilder, the tool that we're using, is nothing more than a nice UI to have us build on top of Agent SDK. So you can see in here, at the end of the day, this is all just Python code where we have guardrails. We have our specific, fire search tool where we're looking up our vector store. So at the end of the day, this is all code. It's just we have a really nice UI that's sitting on top of it. So we can go to ChatKit. Now, once we're inside ChatKit, we want to copy this workflow ID. So just click copy. Now, when we hop back over to our code, so let's go find our code really quick. All we have to do is update this workflow ID right here, save it, and you guys will go and generate your OpenAI key. But the second that's done, all you have to do is run npm I to install all the necessary packages. And then as soon as you're done with that, run dev. Now this is going to go spin up our application on port 3000. So let's go take this bad boy for a run. So localhost 3000, and you can see, ta-da, loading our agent. Now this agent is hooked up to our RAG agent. So we can once again say, what time was Brandon's latest coaching call? What date? At this point, it's going to then go perform the normal RAG query that was always happening inside of, like you just saw in the preview, except now it's happening in production. Like, it's crazy how easy it is from preview to production, and it all works. So at this point, it's generating response, it's thinking, and in just a second, it should generate the result to say, oh, I can see that Brandon's coaching call happened on October 7th, today. And it took place at this time, and here's what was happening. And you can ask follow-up questions. What were some of the main topics talked about during this coaching call? And you can see what is always super nice is you can kind of see which files that it referenced when building out this answer. So it had to look at a few different sources to actually, basically call this out. So we're now going to have it send that second request, and like, this is RAG. This is a real world RAG happening in seconds. This is crazy. Now, the second this is done, so you can see it's doing its normal thinking and everything. As soon as this just generates a result, well, while it's generating a result, I'll actually show you guys some cooler things. So not only are you guys getting access to AgentBuilder, but you also have logs. Now in logs, what you can do is actually view what the heck happened inside of these calls. So you can go to ChatKit threads, and inside here, you can actually see everything that we are talking about. So you can click here and quickly see what was going on. So you can see Brandon asked, or I asked, what time was Brandon's coaching call? Now, what's happening under the hood is it generated all sorts of agent calls to do different assistant messages, where this assistant message called these different files, and it generated, a response, which was like, hey, Brandon's latest coaching call was here. What you could also do, if you wanted to go deeper, is you could go into a trace. In a trace, what you could do is look at, all right, what workflow are we working with? In this case, we're working with, this chat conversation right here. This is what we're working with. And you can actually go look at a trace to where you can see what exactly happened. So you can see we kicked off the agent where we asked what time was Brandon's latest coaching call. So you can see exactly that happened next is our RAG query agent then kicked off an entire result to where it was generating a response. Inside this response, you can see exactly what was happening, the configurations. You can see the system instructions, which is exactly what we set up initially when we were creating the agent. You can see the input, you can see everything. It is crazy that all this is already built out for us. And then now you can see I asked a second question and that this is in progress. Like, the fact that we can do all of this right out the box in seconds is crazy. Not only this, on a ton of other frameworks, this takes forever to get to this point. And you have to pay a ton of money between either bringing in your own third-party tracing capabilities or setting it up yourself. And this just works right out the gate, which is crazy. So hopping back over here, you can see, oh, well, if you're referring to October 7th, we were in the conversation in the coaching call talking about working with different agent platforms, RAG platforms, working with chat SaaS applications. Like, we were talking about all the different, products and everything inside of ShipKit, one of the projects that I built for you guys. So what else you can kind of see hopping over here. So we'll just refresh this. So it's done. Yeah, it should be done with in progress. Not sure why it's still saying it's going. But what's really cool now is I just want to hop to one of the very final features that you guys need to see about AgentBuilder, which is you can start to actually generate some really cool forms. So up to this point, every time we've generated a response, it's just been plain text. Hey, that's cool, but man, we can do so much more. So let me actually show you what else you can do. So at this point, everything we've done is a output format of text. Well, what we could also do is use ChatKit, what you can see right here, which is to build a widget. Now, inside of this widget, what we can do is click Add Widget, and it's going to ask us to create a brand new widget. And what a widget's going to do is it's going to be a really nice UI element that's custom, and the agent is going to know exactly how to fill out this nice UI to actually make it look really cool. So let's just go do it so you can see it in action. So at this point, we're going to say, can you please create a really clean, simplistic UI element that will contain the search results from a RAG agent. So all we need to have is a nice header and a body. That is all we need to make it clean, minimal for our users. Now what's really cool is this create widget application is going to go, all right, cool. I'm going to now make you a widget, and it'll make the most sense as soon as you see it here in a second. But what it's planning on doing is like, oh, you said you wanted a header and you wanted, so header up top, so header, and then over here you wanted body. Well, the agent's going to start working on creating that nice UI element. And what's really cool is at the bottom, once it generates this new widget, is it's going to say, hey, in order for me to showcase this agent, here's exactly what I need. I need a header input and I need a body. So what we can do, this is super minimalistic. We could actually make this fancier if we wanted to, but I just want to, we'll download it. As soon as we download it, we can click upload. We'll go to downloads and we'll do rag search widget. So you can see, ta-da, we now have a widget. So this is what's going to be used to generate our final result. So let's actually just see this in action because it's really, really cool. So we'll actually publish this at the same time too. So let's see this in action. So we're going to say, can you please tell me what is the chat SaaS application? So at this point, I'm going to pass in a query to our vector store once again, and hopefully Whisper can generate the result. 1 second. Perfect. So now we're going to send this off. Now, what this is going to do is perform the typical RAG search, then do guardrails. Then it's going to trigger our result agent, and our result agent is going to then put the final result in that really cool chat widget. Obviously, we went super simple for this demo, but we could have made it look really, really pretty and clean. And I'm going to show you here in the preview land, and then we're going to hop over actually to our NextJS application so you can see just how easy it is to build nice UI elements here and then actually have them appear inside of our real world NextJS application. So you can see our guardrails are running really quickly, and guardrails are going to say yes, hopefully here in a second, of like, yes, this is a pass. So we're going to give this a second. And real quick, if you guys ever get that error up top, that's one of the worst parts about working with new technologies is sometimes they fail. So in our case, we're just gonna have to run it again. But yeah, this is the current AgentKit and AgentBuilder. I'm gonna give it like an 80% reliability right now. I think as time goes on, it'll become obviously more reliable, but you're just gonna see sometimes the agent will kind of basically crap out and it doesn't really tell you why. It just says we've lost hold of the thread. So we're going to let this go for a second while it's trying to think of an answer. It's looking through all of the different coaching calls to figure out like, oh, what is ShipKit? And quick call to plug ShipKit. So this is the tool that I built for you guys. It's a combination of course, pre-built real-world AI applications, and everything that you guys need to do to build real-world AI applications. And definitely recommend checking out this video so you can see all the cool things that you guys get inside of ShipKit. But basically, you can really build a new AI application in days using ShipKit. So we have courses to walk you through everything, pre-built projects to walk you through everything, and one of the coolest things is we have different prompt templates inside the course that they do all the work for you. Oh, you want to come up with a new landing page? Boom, we did that. Oh, you want to build new functionality? Cool, we'll literally help you do all of that. It's the first true AI course, and you'll see all of it in action inside of that video. But enough of that, let's actually hop back to working with this to where we're having our guardrails wrap up and we're having it finish 1 second. Yeah, and for some reason it keeps dying. So I'm just gonna run this a bunch of times in the background until it works for you guys so I can show the final result. So 1 second and I will show you the final result and then we'll hop over to Next.js. All right, so I ran it again and it worked perfectly. So as you can see now, instead of just returning text, like everything above where we used to return text, now what we're doing is returning our cool widget. And obviously this is insanely plain. All we're doing is a header and a body, but we could add so much more to this. We can make it do a cool table. We could make it add a ton of colors. Like there's 1,000 cool things that you can do when it comes to adding widgets. And as you can see, it basically just followed the basic format that we were asking for. Now, what's also really cool is at the exact same time, I asked the same question over to our Next.js application, and you can see it returned with, all of its thoughts. You can see right here and a cool little answer, but at the very end, it returned the widget. And the widget is the exact same thing that you saw earlier, where it's returning an answer and so forth. But what's also really cool is if you wanted to, you could add actions at the end, like a copy button. You could add a send button. You could do all of that. And how would you do it? Well, just going back over here, you would hop back over to AgentBuilder. Inside of our agent, we would just make a brand new widget. So we would actually get rid of this widget. We would detach. We would create a new one, and then what we could do, just once again, go through the process of making a more colorful one, maybe add tables. We could do everything inside of here. Heck, you could even, put this back in, upload the widget, and basically start to work on it yourself. Obviously, the coolest part is to use AI out the gate, but these are just examples of what really cool widgets could look like. So you could add a weather widget, you could add a to-do calendar widget where actions are at the bottom. So you could add any of this, and it takes literally seconds to build out these custom ones. Heck, you could even click on one and you can see the exact source code, and you could make this be your widget. So there's 1,000 things that you could do inside of here, but I just wanted to show you guys today a little bit of what is possible with using AgentKit. But yeah, guys, that's a wrap for this video today. I hope you guys love seeing the biggest update of the OpenAI Dev Day, where you guys got to learn everything about AgentKit and all of the cool new components inside of it, such as AgentBuilder, ChatKit. There's so many cool new features that have made it so much easier to deploy real-world AI agents. If you have questions on anything, feel free to drop a comment down below. Always super happy to help. And also, just a quick reminder, you can download the link down in the description below, and it'll have resources to all of the different transcripts. It'll have links to some of the different resources I use and everything else you need to replicate this on your own. But yeah, thanks guys. Can't wait to see you in the next video. Hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. See ya.